after testifying before a Senate panel. Top national security officials returned to Capitol Hill today to face lawmakers in the House. They include some of those on that Signal group chat. Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI director, John Ratcliffe, CIA director, Kash Patel, FBI director, as well as the heads of the NSA and DIA. Expect to hear more questions about why those officials are talking about future military operations against the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in an unclassified but encrypted Signal app. President Trump says yesterday he stands by his national security advisor, Mike Waltz.
I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again, at least not in the very near future.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling for a full investigation.
The Senate, as well as all relevant authorities within the executive branch, must investigate this incident fully. We need the Senate to do it. I hope Senator Thune will join me in that. We also need the IG of the DOD to do it as well.
Now, last night, Trump's national security advisor sat down with our own Laura Ingraham to explain how the editor of the Atlantic magazine made his way onto the group chat.
I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
In the Pacific, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth pushed back on accusations the group is talking about so-called war plans.
Nobody's texting war plans. I know exactly what I'm doing, exactly what we're directing, and I'm really proud of what we accomplished, the successful missions that night and going forward.
I'll tell you the tale of a chat room psyop. A message to you from our top cops. Europe, a freeloader signal is decoded. A journalist invited to witness some bullshit. Rockets done, gone and hit Houthis and the blowfish. But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what day? What day? It is. It's hump day. Get it on.
Just keep it going. During the show, can we just have that as a house beat that just sort of pulsates through the show? Hump day, baby. Everything's gonna be okay. Today is Wednesday, March 26th, 2025, and we are locked in. We've had our Saratoga water and our banana this morning and our bucket of ice. The full Signal thread has been released, and guess what? Hoax busted again. We're going to rip it to shreds on the show with some of the best guests you could possibly imagine. Jim Jordan will be live. Glenn Greenwald will be live. You don't get two better people on deep state hoaxes than that. Oh wait, we have Megyn Kelly live on the show. Whoa, we are cooking today. President Trump signs full order, executive order, ensuring that there will be zero voter fraud for the future of America. In-paper ballots, citizenship registrations, defunding of states that don't lock down their elections. Baby, the revenge tour is here. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Make sure that in the golden era you're going gold. Do that with my friends at Advantage Gold. We are certainly facing economic uncertainty, and if you listen to the words of the new Treasury Secretary, you'll see that there's going to be some exorcism, as he says, of demons out of the economy. Joe Biden's entire economy was completely fake. So get something that's real, ladies and gentlemen. Invest in physical gold and silver. Join Advantage Gold and me on March 27th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Gold and Silver Summit. That's tomorrow. We'll learn how to build strategic wealth reserves together, physical precious metals. You're looking for real-time tested ways to safeguard your assets. This is the way to do it. They're also giving away $100,000 in free silver, so sign up today. Secure your spot at Advantage Gold Summit. Text Benny to 85545, Benny, B-E-N-N-Y, to 85545. Don't wait for the next crisis to hit. Text Benny to 855-45 right now. Let's talk about crisis, shall we? Shall we? Because I got a nice little setup for you here. And the setup is pretty simple. They needed something. Things were going too well for President Trump. I'm going to prove that to you, actually, with a little clip from our friends at CNN that just published that sends shockwaves and chills and makes libs pee-pee tinkle in their little panties. So scary because things are rolling. And the Democrat Party has never been on a worse foot. It's incredible. The corporate media is straight up writing the obituary for the Democrat Party. George Clooney just did a 60-minute interview where he's like, yo, I'm not even a Democrat anymore. Like, I refuse to even admit that I supported Joe Biden. I'm so embarrassed for the party. It's bad out there. Now, on this show, we regularly say, yeah, this is going to be aliens, right? It's got to be an alien invasion. They're going to stage an alien invasion. They're going to find ancient caverns underneath the pyramids. They're going to totally explain a brand new human civilization that existed 40,000 years ago. Oh, wait, they're literally doing that right now. They're literally running we found a new civilization under the pyramids up at this very moment. Next will be the aliens. Trust me on this. Project Bluebeam. Next will be the aliens. That's what they're going to do. They have to come up with something because World War III, which was, they had a reservation at 7 p.m. sharp for World War III. That's off the table now. Ran out of nukes. Unfortunately, the chef and the busboys quit. Donald Trump was elected president, and now peace is setting about the entire earth. Good. So they're going to have to come up with something because things are going too well for President Trump. And, listen, I'm a big fan of the president. So, you'd say, Benny, why would we listen to you? You clearly have, skin in the game. You have that map up on your wall, right? Yo, let me tell you. I will show you a clip from a network which was sobbing salty rock tears out of their skulls on election night. It ruined their cameras. Jim Acosta got fired for it. Jim Acosta cried so much on election night, the salt and the sodium, it just locked in the camera gear. He destroyed like $1 million worth of camera equipment inside of the CNN studios. It was atrocious. This is a network that hates President Trump. And even they have to straight up admit it. We're cooked. The Democrat Party is just cooked. They got nothing. And most importantly, President Trump is more popular than he's ever been. Right now, this clip is just a few hours old. Go.
I think sometimes it's important to do a little bit of reality check and take a little different spin at the numbers. I'm going to do that right here because all we talk about is how unpopular Donald Trump is. But in reality, he's basically more popular than he was at any point in term number one and more popular than he was when he won election back in November of 2024. What are we talking about? His net favorable rating right now comes in at -4 points. Compare that to where he was when he won in November of 2024 when he was at -7 points, or March of 2017 when he was at -10 points. So when you compare Trump against himself, he's actually closer to the apex than he is to the bottom of the trough. And of course, that's so important because Donald Trump, historically speaking, has had his numbers underestimated. So I think it's very important to compare him to himself to understand he's actually more popular now than he was when he won, or certainly where he was at this point back in his first term. The bottom line is Trump is more towards the ceiling than he is towards the floor.
So when you do that, it makes my knees hurt. So when you look at this compared to sort of historically, what does it tell you about the percentage of folks that think the country itself, with him at the helm, is on the right track?
This, I think, is rather important because, again, if the polls have historically underestimated Donald Trump, what is a metric that might get at understanding at how popular he may actually be? So let's take a look at the percentage of the country who say that we're on the right track. It's actually a very high percentage when you compare it to some historical numbers. What are we talking about? According to Maris, 45% say that we're on the right track. That's the second highest that Maris has measured since 2009. How about NBC News? 44%. That's the highest since 2004. Wow. The bottom line is the percentage of Americans who say we're on the right track is through the roof. And if you were to compare it to when presidents have historically been reelected, of course, Trump is not constitutionally eligible to run for re-election, but I think it sort of puts it in perspective. 42% of the country says the country is on the right track when the incumbent party is re-elected. And also keep in mind, back when Kamala Harris lost and the Democrats were turned out of power, only about 27 to 28% of the country said the country is on the right track. The bottom line is right now, a much higher percentage of the country says we're on the right track. And finally, Sarah Seidner, I want to put it all in the congressional generic ballot.
What about Congress? No.
What about Congress? Because those are the folks who are up in 2026. And take a look here. The Dems versus the Republicans on the generic congressional ballot. Back in November of 2020, when Democrats won, it was +5 Democrats. Tied in November of 2022, +1 in November of 2024 when Republicans maintain control. And then you look at March of 2025. This number looks a lot more like 2022 or 2024 when Republicans won control of Congress. The bottom line is, yes, Donald Trump's approval rating is lower than compared to a lot of his predecessors, but it's higher than compared to himself. A lot of folks say the country's on the right track, and the generic congressional ballot looks a heck of a lot more like when Republicans win than when Democrats win.
It will be interesting to see if any of what just happened with these leaking of the text plays into it in a later poll. But this is very telling.
This is very telling. At least at this point, Republicans are still in the catbird seat.
We had to play the whole thing. You had to play the whole thing. You have to play the full 2 minutes. The reason why is you saw the game afoot at the very end. Sherlock, the game is afoot. You saw what was going on. Did you see the lady there at the end? Miss, it hurts my knees. Go, but did you check in on the signal messages? I wonder if that's gonna do it. Is that gonna hurt Donald Trump? They couldn't just let Harry Enton, who's the pollster at CNN, just rip through the Democrat Party. So why don't we join in at our friends with Axios, and then we're gonna cover this new op, this hoax against the Trump administration, and some very dark secrets that were just revealed about rats inside of the ship, okay? But first, Democrats, rats. Behind the curtain, Dems' dark, deep hole. Okay, that's also what they call Jasmine Crockett behind her back in Congress. Top Democrats tell us their party is in the deepest hole in nearly 50 years, and they fear that things could get actually worse. Let's just go through these bullet points here. By the way, this is from Axios. This is from left-wing PR. Tabloid is what Axios is. Here's what they say about their own party that they donate to. The party has its lowest favorability ever. No popular national leader to improve it. Insufficient numbers to stop most legislation in Congress. A durable minority on the Supreme Court. Dwindling influence over the media ecosystem, and right-leaning podcasters, social media accounts ascendant. Young voters are growing dramatically more conservative. A bad 2026 map for Senate races. Democrat Senate retirements across the board. And there are only 3 House Republicans in districts that Kamala Harris won. That's a very bad sign for a Democrat surge. There were 23 when Hillary Clinton lost. And thanks to the number of people fleeing blue states, the math for Democrats to win the presidency will just get harder in 2030. Shout out to the chat. We did this. Shout out to the chat. I just want to say love you, love the chat, love to you in the chat. We did this, right? So we create this crisis environment for Democrats where it's really existential. When you back an animal or a fighter, Klein's a fighter, Killer Klein's a fighter, right? Here with me in the studio. Does it professionally, teaches it. Got a little photo. Klein, make sure you get that photo of you like with your class. It's really cool. Anyway, the point is that when you get some fighters, when you back them up into a corner, can get pretty nasty and can really throw can potentially hurt you. I bite your ear off. Animals, when they feel like their lives are being threatened, they really can harm you. You can really get hurt. Back a dog into a corner, back a mangy dog into a corner with rabies. See what happens. It's not good. And right now, you have the mangy dog of the Democrat Party about ready to get put down. It ain't good. This is existential. Can I please see the map one more time? I know that And the mic's right here, so I'm just going to point. Ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2030, which is really not that far from now, in the year 2030, based on congressional reapportionment, this map right here will prove out that Democrats can win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Democrats can win Michigan, and it won't matter. Republicans will still have the electoral victory because Florida is getting 4 new seats. Texas is getting 5 new seats. California, New York losing seats. Minnesota losing seats. Minnesota, they're all these blue states are losing seats. You're talking a proper crisis, and Donald Trump's the first president to ever pick a vice president for the sole purpose, not because of his skin color or because of his genitalia. This is exactly what Joe Biden did. How'd that work out for him? Joe Biden promised he would do it. Donald Trump's the first president ever to pick a vice president based entirely on succession. Trump knows he's got 1 term. Steve Bannon says he's going to change that. Okay, we'll see. But as of right now, Trump's got 1 term. J.D. Vance was selected to be the vessel of Trumpism and MAGA and America First into the future, knowing that this map here will equal a virtual impossibility for Democrats to win the popular vote, to win the Electoral College. Yo, it's getting bad. They got to bring out the big guns. They got to stop this now. They got to stop the bleeding. Jasmine Crockett ain't doing it. Attacking reporters. We'll talk about that. Chuck Schumer ain't doing it. They got to bring in the big guns. The suckers and losers, dude. We talked about this yesterday. I just want to put the article up on screen. Trump says that Americans who died in war are losers and are suckers. Matched with a photo of President Trump visiting families in Arlington Cemetery, something you never saw Joe Biden do. Joe Biden looked at his watch as the bodies of 13 service members killed at Abbey Gate in Afghanistan were rolled off the plane in a dignified transfer, and he said, "How can I get out of here fast enough?" Scumbag. President Trump loves our troops, and they love him back, and anybody who's ever watched with open eyes knows this. The man who perpetrated this hoax, this man, the writer of this, Jeffrey Goldberg, see that right there? The man who perpetrated this hoax never was able to give names, quotes, was never able to substantiate this reporting, who ran it in the globalist neocon rag called The Atlantic to try and destroy President Trump with his military-loving base and the American people. This man is currently responsible for a new hoax pulled on the American people. We can straight up prove to you that it's a hoax. Something remarkable has happened. So Jeffrey Goldberg, this scum, who has not only made up this hoax, but also hoaxed us into wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, hoaxed us after 9/11. Jeffrey Goldberg, a literal wrap-up smear artist for the deep state. This is the man's job. He hoaxed through the 51 intel experts, the spies who lied. There isn't a pail of water for the deep state that this guy hasn't carried. He is literal scum on earth. He is the last guy you'd ever want inside of your group chat if you are planning even a birthday party for your nephew in the Trump administration, much less bombing Yemen, large-scale military actions. Ladies and gentlemen, sure enough, Jeffrey Goldberg was put on the group texts, okay? Now, I'm going to play you a little clip of Jeffrey Goldberg because they can't help themselves. They got to run and do as many interviews as possible because that's what all this stuff's about, right? It's not about it's not about national security. Please. I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you it to a man. If I were put on a chat, it doesn't matter the administration. If I were accidentally added to a chat, and yo, I'm on Signal, I send a lot of messages on Signal. Nothing I wouldn't want on the front of the New York Times because Signal is a deep state messaging app. Signal was designed by the CIA. Signal has backdoors. that clearly intel agents and experts can hack into and get all your messages. Tucker Carlson straight up said the NSA hacked his Signal chat. Tucker Carlson said this on the Nelk Boys podcast. Grab that clip. This is an app. I sent a ton of messages on Signal to people that are of relative importance, right, in the country. Again, nothing I wouldn't want published on the front page of the New York Times. Nothing I wouldn't say on the show. You know what I mean? But it's a good little app to communicate on. Nothing wrong with using Signal. Okay. Anyway, the point is that the NSA hacked Tucker Carlson's Signal when they wanted to get his messages. Of course, they're going to hack this Signal. We speculated yesterday that maybe if the app was created by the deep state, maybe if the app is like created by a black splinter cell inside the CIA, and maybe if they did that so that they could control the app and could monitor the text messages of people on it, and they could install it. Maybe that's why they install it on every government agent's phone, so that they'd have a secret back door to all their comms. Maybe, just maybe, this was a op. Maybe, just maybe, this was a new hoax. And the Trump administration has been hoaxed. And the single worst reporter on planet Earth, the guy responsible for this article, Jeffrey Goldberg, the most Trump-deranged, hoax, scum, Russiagator, deep state apparatchik. I mean, again, you just could not. It's like adding Satan to the group chat at the Vatican. You can't find a worse person to add to your chat. It doesn't work. It's like if you're an NFL team and you add you're going through your playbook and you add the quarterback and the head coach of the opposing team, okay? What was it? Right? Chiefs and Eagles. Okay, let's add Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to our Eagles playbook chat. It can't get worse. It can't get worse. Scumbag Jeffrey Goldberg in this clip I'm about to show you is gonna like mule and bitch about how I'm not gonna release all the text because they have state secrets in them. Okay, rule number one. If I'm added to a Signal chat, again, this is why I'm establishing on it. If I'm added to a Signal chat, it doesn't care the administration. And like it's the guy running the Pentagon, it's like a bunch of Pentagon guys and a bunch of like people clearly planning classified intel and information. I'm out. You might say, you're not a journalist. Well, let me tell you something, okay? Let me tell you a little something. This is how they get you, all right? Benny, why don't you get into the government? Well, this is how they get you. The entire world here is set up in order to F people over through classified documents. I want to show you this. Where is it? Right here. The classified documents, there it is. This is how they got Trump. Look at this. Here's Donald Trump's charging papers from Jack Smith. Here you go. Counts 1 through 32. Willful retention of national defense information. 18, U.S. Section 793. Okay? Why don't we charge Jeffrey Goldberg with this? If he does have state secrets, here's Donald Trump being charged for, let's go ahead and read here. Having unauthorized possession of, access to, and control over documents relating to national defense, and willfully retaining these documents, failing to deliver them to the officer or employee of the United States entitled to receive them. Oh. Trump, without authorization, retained these documents. Well, did Jeffrey Goldberg have authorization to be viewing the... You can't have it both ways, Jeff. Is Jeff the next guy to get charged and thrown in the slammer by a special counsel? Why don't we open up a special counsel on Jeff? Well, that would seem the logical conclusion here. Willful retention of national defense information. That's why I'd say, I'm out, you know? No, but this little gremlin, this little urchin, slunk around and sneaked into this chat. Apparently he was invited by Michael Waltz. We're going to get into that in just a second. Michael Waltz says it's a hoax. So who invited him? Who put him on the chat? So you have to start asking the right questions if you want to get to the right answer. Who put him on the chat? Here he is saying yesterday in an interview, "Oh, I can't release the full chat because there's too much classified information in there." Let's go.
Now the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence? Maybe. I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look.
I feel like no. I mean, I obviously. Let me just put it this way: my colleagues and I, and the advice that and the people who are giving us advice on this have some interesting conversations to have about this.
Yeah.
But just because they're irresponsible with material doesn't mean that I'm going to be irresponsible with this material. And you know what? I could, whatever. I mean, you've had a long history, as I have, with dealing with.
Oh. So you're not going to release them because they're so devastating and so classified? And you're such an upstanding moral servant of the deep state? Gotcha. He released them this morning. like the fraud is up. It's all done. And we're done here. The messages weren't classified. The information on there wasn't classified. In fact, the information on there looks incredible and immaculate for the Trump administration. Let's get these texts up. And more importantly, let's get up The Atlantic totally changing its story. The Atlantic has now stealth edited the war plans, sophisticated war plans, to attack plan. You can see right here. We have an attack. It's now an attack plan. It's not a war plan, you see. ALX, please grab that Taylor tweet. They've changed the entire narrative. Yeah, there it is. They've changed the whole... Here's the attack plan. Trump advisor shared on Signal. We read through all of these. Actually, it makes the Trump administration look incredible. But let's read through them together, shall we? And sorry for this belabored setup, but you got to see exactly how this thing is falling to pieces, why they're doing it. They have to launch an op. They have to do something. They have to run some hoax. Everything's going too well for Trump. They have to stop him at all costs, including maybe using a backdoor splinter cell group inside of the CIA to surreptitiously and illegally add a journalist, the worst possible journalist on earth, to add to this chat, to sneak him in there so he could spy on Trump. That's what's going on here. This is a new Spygate. Why didn't this dude just say, why didn't Jeffrey Goldberg say, yo, guys, I'm the editor of The Atlantic. Y'all want to talk to me offline? Let me know. But I'm not going to sit here and lurk on your chat. This is unethical, actually. Let's go through these chats, shall we? Okay. So he released all the chats. Less than a day after saying, I couldn't possibly release them. They're so classified. The nuclear codes are in there. No, they're not. No. In fact, the only things that are actually in these chats are a honest, good faith argument from the Trump administration, top-level officials with sophisticated understanding of geopolitics, of what's happening in these regions, and, most importantly, standing up for what they believe, what they say they believe. Publicly, they're saying it privately. Isn't that wonderful? They're literally practicing America first in these chats. Okay, here we go. First page, keep going. Everyone's just introducing themselves. Second page, let's go. Okay. Team, you should know, statement and conclusion, blah, blah, blah. We've developed effectively a plan to bomb the Houthis. Now, this JD Vance line is incredible here. Team, I'm out for the day, but I think that we are making a mistake. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There's a real risk to the public that doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message. But I'm not sure that the president is aware of how inconsistent this message is on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team, but keep the concerns to myself. But there's a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why it matters, and seeing where the economy is. What an unbelievable take. This is the America First take. The America First take is, why are we bombing a foreign country? How does that help America? It really doesn't, in fact. We're just doing Europe's dirty work. And we don't want to do Europe's dirty work anymore. We want Europe to do Europe's dirty work. And this may cause pain at home for the only people we care about, which are Americans. This could spike oil prices and hurt Americans. What an unbelievable thing. He could have said that in a speech from a podium at a MAGA rally, and everyone would cheer. And here he is saying it behind the scenes, the most powerful people in the country who are making these decisions, and what it does is it shows moral fortitude, clarity, strength, will to power. It shows that J.D. Vance isn't a fraud, that he believes 100% of what he's telling you on camera or off. Man, what a banger. The rest of the rest of the chats, and I encourage you to read them, they're all over the internet. The rest of the chats go through and talk about the pros and cons of when we should bomb the Houthis. Just a little background in case you care. I don't really, but like in case you care. Houthis are a terrorist faction. They're funded by Iran. They bomb ships. That's not good. Some of those ships are American. A lot of those ships are other foreign nations. Those other foreign nations should clean up the Houthis. All you would need is like a couple bombs and you'd be good. Plenty of other countries are capable of doing this. They just don't want to spend the money. It's always us having to spend the money and put our soldiers in danger. We went and did it. I would have much preferred Europe do this, since it's literally their shipping lane. But it is what it is. It's just back and forth. You can see. You can just read them for yourself. It's just all a bunch of a back and forth. Okay, here's the pros. Here's the con. When should we do it? When JD says, why don't we delay a month and do some messaging out on the trail? Tell the American people why this is important. America does not want us in new wars and more wars. It just rings like a bell. It's so awesome. I'm so proud of this administration reading these chats. Maybe it's something I haven't thought about. Maybe they added them on purpose. Maybe they're playing Jeff Goldberg. Maybe. I almost called him Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum's cool. Jeff Goldberg is like little short gremlin man. Yeah, that's right. I could do I would love to have Jeff Goldblum on the show to explain this entire thing. Nonetheless, I'm telling you, this makes them look great. This actually makes the administration look incredible. It makes them look honest. Now, I'm joking, okay? I don't think that there's zero upside to having Jeff Goldberg on this chat, all right? Zero upside. And everyone sees that. President Trump called it a mistake. The officials in the administration called it a mistake and said they are trying to desperately figure out why this happened. Now, there's something far more pernicious and nefarious going on here that is really bad. And I really do hope that Goldberg gets charged for possession of national defense information. It's what they charged Trump with. The entire Mar-a-Lago raid was predicated upon what Jeff Goldberg just did. He had he had, according to him, classified information that he was retaining. National defense information. This doesn't even say classified. It just says national defense information. So that definitely is what this is. And Jeff Goldberg's like lurking like a peeping Tom in the girls' locker room. He's like lurking in the towel bin. A little creep he is. And like was spying on the Trump administration. That's what he's doing. Why don't you charge him with this? Throw a count at him. You knew what you were doing, you little rat. Trump's reaction, ladies and gentlemen, clearly a mistake was made. The administration is, again, calling this a hoax because what they're going to try and do, and what they are doing right now, trust me, I'm going to prove to you what a deep state op this all was. Because something broke right at time of show that gives the entire game up. but I'm going to get ahead of myself. Let me set this up for you. Here's President Trump responding to this. Clearly a mistake was made. Go.
Mr. President, are you going to change any of the practices that your national security officials used after a reporter was inadvertently added to a group chat about attacks on Yemen?
Well, I think it's a question I've been asked now, and I've given a few answers, and they've all been the same. We have an amazing group. Our national security now is stronger than it's ever been. We have had a very, very successful, numerous attacks on that area. These are people that shoot down ships, not only our ships, ships all over the world. They're shooting down right out of the water and damaging them badly, or they're going down. They're also shooting anything that happens to be flying in the area. We hit them very, very hard. There was no classified information, as I understand it. They used a app, if you want to call it an app, that a lot of people use, a lot of people in government use, a lot of people in the media use.
Okay. So Trump's just like, listen, a mistake was made using this app. Somebody added the wrong person. Mike Waltz did exactly what he needed to do yesterday. We went a little hard on Mike Waltz because Jeffrey Goldberg blames Mike Waltz for all of this. Straight up off the top of the dome, Jeffrey Goldberg is like, Mike Waltz added me to this. He's the reason I'm here. Mike Waltz put me in here, connected with me, and it's Mike Waltz, I'm going to put air quotes around this, who did this. So, I mean, the White House confirmed that his reporting was true, meaning he wasn't making up the chat. It wasn't fake. So we had to go down that path, and we think we found something very interesting. We'll get there in a second. First off, let's let Mike Waltz speak for himself here, all right? Mike Waltz, what happened?
And I think I'll ask Mike. Mike is here. Do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, Mr. President. You asked about lessons. I think there's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength. You're welcome, world.
Okay. So Mike Waltz is saying that these are Russiagate hoaxers that are pulling this stunt against him and against the president, and we shouldn't listen to them. Then Mike Waltz goes on Laura Ingraham and drops a absolute thermonuclear bomb. Later in the day, President Trump said, hey, it was a Mike Waltz staffer who made a horrible mistake here. We speculated that might be it. You ever seen somebody in D.C.? You ever seen these guys in D.C.? They walk around with like 20 phones. Like they have these big, they have like the stack of phones that they use. Those phones are handed off to staffers. Every member of Congress does this. Every person in D.C. with any clout does this. Their staffers run their phone, run their social media, run their text messaging, send this message, send that message. Was it Mike Waltz doing this? No, I don't think so. It would have been so easily provable if it was Mike Waltz. He says, I've never even met this guy. And then he said this on Laura Ingraham. Go.
So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA.
But how did a Trump-hating editor of The Atlantic end up on your Signal chat?
You know, Laura, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and gone to Russia hoax, gone to just all kinds of links to lie and smear the president of the United States. And he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group.
Is someone in your intel? Is someone in your intel team trying to cause trouble here? Because that's the scuttlebutt out there.
Look,
that
we have people. No, look, this is a great group. The president has a great team. This is not first term.
No, your team. I'm not talking about the other principals.
No. These were principals and a couple of staff that were coordinating, as you saw, having a policy discussion as we went forward, and then just in the days before what was an incredible strike. Not only did we take out people that the Biden team never could, that we took out headquarters, missile caches, and actually one of the leaders of the Houthi organization. We've since taken out several since. And, that's what they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about the success here. They don't want to talk about the hostages getting released. They don't want to talk about the Black Sea ceasefire that we just put in place today as the president ends the largest land war in Europe, or the border, or the fact that Panama just kicked China out of the canal, and success after success after success. So they want to focus on this. It's embarrassing, yes. We're going to get to the bottom of it. I just talked to Elon on the way here. We've got the best technical minds looking at how this happened. But I can tell you for 100%, I don't know this guy. I know him by his horrible reputation, and he really is the bottom scum of journalists. And I know him in the sense that he hates the president, but I don't text him. He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
Whoa. Huh? Did you hear that at the very end? Was this some other technical glitch? Was it a technical glitch? Let me make this very clear. It's not easy to add people on Signal, okay? So I don't mean to belabor this. But somebody had to have his contact. Somebody had to have the dude's cell phone number. And if Mike Waltz has never met him, then who had the number? Who added him? You have to have the number saved to add it to a group, unless you're telepathic and you can just inside of your brain just come up with the number, just conjure the guy's cell phone number out of thin air. You can't do that. So it don't make no sense. What Mike Waltz is laying the groundwork for here is, was there some type of nefarious backdoor potential hack of this chat where the hacker, CIA, NSA, added this journalist? A technical issue, he says. We're talking to Elon, he says. My staffer didn't do it, but I don't know the guy. So I don't have the guy's cell phone number. So how did it happen, Mike? Right? It's really leading to one conclusion. Now, there is speculation. It's just pure speculation online about staffers in the national security. Now, remember, the NSA staffers were the people who spied on Trump. I'm just gonna set up the pure speculation here, okay? It's just the opinion of people on the internet. Because we don't know. Trump said it was a Mike Waltz staffer. Trump has also stripped the security clearances of a law firm called Covington Burling in Washington, D.C. for representing Jack Smith. There are NSC staffers that worked at Covington Burling. There are NSC staffers who worked for the Bush State Department in the Iraq War. This is something that Jeff Goldberg had a huge hand in. There are people who worked for Romney-Ryan campaign. Pompeo, the Hudson Institute. It's just pure speculation. But here's what I know. I know that there's a rat's nest at the NSC. I know that because this is the organ that was used to spy on Trump the first time. And I know that because they got Trump impeached with his call to Zelensky. All right. Here's the final thing, and I can't wait to talk to Jim Jordan about this. Final thing, how you know it is a deep state op, all right? Because nothing makes sense out of the White House. It makes no sense. The story from Mike Waltz makes no sense. There's something nefarious happening here. Mike Waltz, we know Mike Waltz. He's regular on the show. He's not suicidal. This is like a career ender to do something like this. He's not stupid. The last thing he is stupid. He's not stupid, man. Get ready. Because start time of show, they had a lawsuit all lined up. Would you look at that? And the lawsuit got assigned directly to Judge Boasberg. It's scripted. It's like out of a movie. It's scripted. So they had a lawsuit all ready to go on this. This story only broke 24 hours ago. It broke right before they were ready to testify in the Senate. Boom. Lawsuit dropped. Goes directly to the same judge that said, you've got to turn around all the migrant flights. I want to personally inspect all the migrant flights myself. Trump-hating, Trump-deranged, psychotic lunatic. Come on, man. Same judge that halted the deportation flight. Same judge that played a role in Russiagate. Another hoax. Judge who blocked Trump deportation played key role in Russiagate collusion hoax, advancing the collusion hoax. Guys, his wife, his children, his family works at USAID and USAID connected NGOs. It's an op, man. It's an op. It's a setup. It's never been more obvious. They're running out of ammo. This should tell us everything, that the Signal incident was most likely a setup. American oversight is David Brock and Norm Eisen. This is the group that sued. They are the top contagion points for lawfare against Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, there's just too much going on here. Too many. There's no such thing as this many coincidences. American oversight immediately had their lawsuit ready to file less than 24 hours later, and it goes right to Judge Boasberg. Oh, come on. It just rings like a bell. It hurts, actually. Sucks. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I got to tell you, I am very, very excited for our next guest. This is the perfect man to talk about this with, and the perfect man who actually has the gavel to investigate all of this. He's also a athlete who was with President Trump at the NCAA National Wrestling Championship. As an athlete, of course, you're well aware of the health effects of a sauna. But most of us don't have room for a sauna in our home. That's why I use Bond Charge. Bond Charge is a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life. Their red light face mask is something that I use every single night. It does scare my children, so I use it after they're in bed. It can help with wrinkles, face lines, acne relaxation, razor burns. I get those every single day. The list is endless. Bond Charge's red light face mask is easy to use. My wife just went through all pregnancy is tough, right? It's not particularly comfortable. She used red light every single night, and it really helped her. Just 10 to 20 minutes a day can change your life, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't have room for a sauna in your home, most don't, Bond Charge is the way to go. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny and use the coupon code Benny for 15% off. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny. Use coupon code Benny for 15% off. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent a disease or condition. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman Jim Jordan joins the program live now. So exciting, Mr. Chairman. It just so happens that Judge Boasberg gets the case. They had it all lined up.
Randomly selected,
Right in there. It's just like Juan Merchan got the Steve Bannon case and all the Trump cases and Stormy Daniels case. It just happens to be this one judge out of hundreds in New York gets all the Trump cases. It's just amazing that.
Well, you're right. It's supposed to be random. But Judge Boasberg could recuse himself from this case if there's a perceived bias, a potential for bias, if there's a conflict Well, I think there's a lot of people who think there's a bias. After all, as you mentioned, Benny, this is the guy who said, turn the flight around, bring all the bad guys, the hardened criminals who were here illegally, who did terrible things, bring those folks back to America. This is the judge who was there on the FISA court when they issued the warrants to spy on President Trump's campaign 8 years ago. So there's a history there, and yet, no recusal. He's going to get the case. And then, as you point out, Norm Eisen, by the way, Norm Eisen is the guy the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee hired to come in for the impeachment of President Trump back when we were defending President Trump, the whole call with Ukraine and all. Norm Eisen's that guy, and they had that lawsuit ready to go. Go figure.
Go figure. All right. So what's going to happen next? This entire thing doesn't seem like it's working with the American people. How are they going to skin this cat, so to speak? You know more about this process than me. What does it hinge on, like what's classified and what's not? Like,
well, here's what I know, and I think this is probably where the American people are. We know that no Americans were injured or killed, as far as we know, in the attack. We know the bad guys, terrorists, were killed. We know that the White House told us there wasn't classified information. They told us that yesterday. And the operation was a success. So I think the American people are like, okay, let's move on here. I think that's what the American people take away from it, not the left. They're always looking for something to go after President Trump, and I guess this is the latest. We'll just see. But I don't think the American people fall for this stuff anymore because we've been through this history. Yeah. Trump, Russia was a bunch of garbage. The Mueller report told us. Then it was impeachment. Then it was, then we're going to raid his home. Then it was all Fani Willis, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith, all of it baloney. So I think the American people are like, okay, we get it. We know this operation was a success. We think Mike Waltz, Pete Hegseth, John Radcliffe, Tulsi Gabbard are patriots. They love our country, and we're going to move forward.
So it's interesting that you bring up the Mar-a-Lago raid because we have the actual charging documents here from justice.gov, Jack Smith's own documents here, Mr. Chairman. It says willful retention of national defense information is what they got Trump for. Oh boy, what did he do? Donald Trump had unauthorized possession and access to, control over documents relating to national defense. Well, hot damn. Sure sounds like Jeffrey Goldberg.
Well, it sure sounds like Joe Biden when he had in different locations in the library, in his home, in the basement. It was like, oh, you got to be kidding. And remember with President Trump too, I think this is what, if I remember correctly, they told President Trump, take these documents, lock him in a room, and he did what they told him, and then they still raid his home. Again, I think the American people saw all that for what it was. Judge Eileen Cannon certainly saw it for what it was. This Jack Smith wasn't even appointed in a way that was consistent with our Constitution. So, but again, the pattern of just going the left going after it, and now we have this. We'll have to wait and see how this shakes out. But what we're going to focus on, like we always do, is getting the facts to the American people.
So Judge Boasberg has been in the news quite a bit, and he's drawn the ire of the president's administration, Stephen Miller, and now your committee, where you're going to be launching an investigation. What do you expect to do with that investigation? Sure.
Well, there's several remedies to this, what these judges and the actions they're taking. Some are issuing injunctions that apply nationwide. So we have legislation that we passed a couple weeks ago. Representative Ice has got a good bill. We passed it out of our committee. The speaker's going to bring it to the floor. And it says, if you got a judge in Timbuktu, California, and they issue some injunction, it shouldn't apply nationwide. It should apply only to the parties of the case in that respective jurisdiction. So we got legislative ways we can deal with some of this. We have the appropriations process. I mean, we want to make sure our judges have the security they need. We want to make sure Americans get access to justice. But there may be some things we can do using the power of the purse to let these judges know, hey, let's focus on the facts. And let's remember that the president is the head of the executive branch, for goodness sake, elected by the American people. Some judge appointed was not. So there's that avenue. And then, of course, there's oversight, which is what we do a lot of on the Judiciary and the Oversight Committee. So we're going to start that. We have a hearing scheduled for next Tuesday. We're going to announce those witnesses soon. And then I believe Chairman Grassley on the Senate is going to have a hearing on the following day, next Wednesday, where we begin to dig into this issue and look at Judge Boasberg, where this order made no sense, and then this injunction issue and the need for this legislation to become the law.
So we have a clip here, and I know that we're up against a hard out, so we're not going to play it, but it's of the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, saying and causing quite a few shockwaves, saying, yeah, you know what? It is actually Congress's job to determine which judicial districts get funding.
Yeah.
And that's a weapon. That's a tool if things get out of hand inside of these districts. Do you support the defunding of judicial districts?
What I support is I've talked to the appropriations chair looking at this, and are there ways that we can deal with the appropriation process that won't hurt Americans' access to justice, access to the court, and won't hurt the security? Remember, the security is important, because remember what happened after the Dobbs leak. There was an assassination attempt on Justice Kavanaugh. So we want to make sure security is there, but there are other areas. We spend a lot of money that we should take a hard look at. That's part of our job. And the founders, they envisioned the separate and equal branches of government. They envisioned the real power and authority that the legislative branch has, because that's where they put the power of the purse and the power to tax, and specifically in the House. So it's something we have to focus on, I think, as we begin to look at all the injunctions and all the orders against President Trump. They're so disproportional to every other president in modern history. It shows, I think, this bias. And then Judge Boasberg, but he was also the judge that gave Kevin Kleinsmith, Benny, you remember this. Kevin Kleinsmith is the lawyer who lied to the FISA court. He altered a document, made it 180 degrees opposite of what it was intended to say, took that to the court. And Boasberg was part of that too, where Kleinsmith got a slap on the wrist for lying to a court as a member of the bar. You got to be kidding me. So that's the history of this guy. And it starts to look like this Boasberg guy is operating in a purely political fashion. Well, if that's the case, then there may be some funding that we need to look at.
Yeah, it really is existential, because at some point, we're talking about the Signal chat, and I'm actually really proud reading these messages. I'm like, whoa, this is kick-ass. You got these guys who clearly are saying what they mean. They say the same thing publicly as they say behind the scenes. They're arguing for America first. They're smart. They're tactical. They're weighing the pros and cons. It's very intelligent. It's sharp as a tack. And I'm like reading this. I'm like, wow, this is awesome, actually, to see the insights here.
That's funny. I'm just going to say, as you go through that, I haven't seen today's story yet, so I want to go through and read it.
Sure.
And then but the way you're describing it, remember what they said about the phone call between President Trump and President Zelensky as the basis for impeachment. And then President Trump did something that they didn't think he would do. He released the transcript of the perfect call. And we got to read it. And we got to see the context and the actual language. You're like, okay, no problem there with that phone call. So I want to read what you described. I have not had a chance to look at the article yet, and I'm going to.
Yeah, particularly J.D. Vance's take on this, because he's pushing back and he's saying Americans don't want to start new wars. We don't want to bomb anything. And actually, this is Europe's problem. So why not have Europe deal with it? Why can't they send their own missiles?
I did see that in the first story, I think yesterday or the day before, but I haven't read today's story yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the point is that you want to be upfront and you want to have clarity with the American people. And when you're running these kind of things through judges like this, and you're doing the lawsuits the way that they're doing them right afterwards, it seems like a massive setup. It seems like the entire op. Mike Waltz, Mike Waltz. He's a friend of the show. He's a smart guy. Anytime we needed a really sharp take on what's happening geopolitically, we bring on Mike Waltz. The entire operation, Mr. Chairman, and you've been part of so many hoaxes. You are like the king of debunking hoaxes on the Hill. You have the crown. What's your ruling on this? It all smells really bad. Mike Waltz says he doesn't even know the guy. So how's he get added to the chat?
Yeah, I don't get all that either. I think this is just, look, we got to get more information, I think. But you're right on so many of these others. The other investigations we've done, the only thing we get wrong at the beginning is it always turns out to be worse than we thought. So the idea that they had this, I mean, that's a 1 day, 24-hour turn a brief around and have this suit, that's pretty quick. Maybe they did it, but, we got to kind of see. What I do know is the guy, Norm Eisen, as you pointed out. I know Norm Eisen's history. I know he was the guy on Judiciary Committee that the Democrats went out and got and brought him in specifically to impeach President Trump.
All right. Well, the final question, I had to. I'm going to change topics slightly here, but I think you're going to love it. The final question for you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Fani Willis spotting at the airport. She's eating fast food. she's wandering around with Nathan Wade. Nathan Wade's carrying her bags, and Big Fani and Nathan are schlepping through the airport, flying coach now. And I see that big grin on your face.
Well,
I can't help myself. I got to get your take on this.
Yeah, that whole case was, everyone knows that whole case was ridiculous, using a RICO. I mean, like, you got to be kidding me. And then when we deposed Nathan Wade, he couldn't remember anything. We had his billing records. He billed for time coming to D.C., talking with people, and we asked him, where did that meeting take place? I don't know. We go, did it take place? Our lawyer's asking me, and he goes, yeah, it took place because I billed for it. He goes, was it in person? Was it via Zoom? Was it in DC? I can't remember. He couldn't recall anything. The whole case was ridiculous. And the good news is the American people understand that whole case was ridiculous.
All right. Well, hard times for Fani. We hope that she enjoys her. Remember, she likes vodka. Okay, she's a vodka girl. And wherever they're going, we really wish them the best. Please don't come back. Actually, maybe it's a one-way flight. We're not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe Guantanamo. We don't know, Mr. Chairman. We do know that you must follow. You must follow Representative Jim Jordan, and he's the man who was sitting front row with Trump at the NCAA's. Such an awesome event.
That's a fun night.
He's a fighter.
That heavyweight match, you know wrestling, Benny. That heavyweight match was a great match. They could wrestle that match 10 times, and Stevenson wins 9 of them. But Wyatt Hendrickson, I think, won because his commander-in-chief was there watching. I think that was the inspiration, extra little motivation he needed to beat, as you know, the baddest guy on the planet in heavyweight is Gable Stevenson. So it was a lot of fun.
So you were cheering for Oklahoma. This might lose you some votes. I'm sorry.
Well, the new coach at Oklahoma State's actually wrestled at our high school. David Taylor, great talent, as you know, as well, Olympic champ as well. So Oklahoma State had a good tournament.
All right. There we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Everyone follow Jim Jordan. Someday will be as big of an influencer as Jim Jordan. 6.2 million subscribers there on X. Godspeed.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, very honored to have our next guest, somebody who we followed for a very long time, somebody who rings like a bell with clarity on these nefarious ops that are being run by the intel agencies, and that's just clearly what's going on right now inside of the Trump White House. What is it, though? It's sort of a strange nut to crack, but somebody who's cracked the case on so many of these dark and nefarious corners of the government is the legendary Glenn Greenwald of System Update, a show exclusively on Rumble. He's a legend, and he joins us live now. I don't know, Glenn, if you could tell I'm a fan or not, but this is what I think of you.
I'm going to require that introduction for any other show that I agreed to go on. That's going to have to be repeated verbatim. No, seriously, I really appreciate that, and I'm happy to be here.
Rings like a bell, Glenn. Like when you speak on these issues and when you dissect, it becomes very confusing, because if you don't know the guy, how does his name get added to a chat? Signal was built by the intel agencies, and the NSA hacked Tucker Carlson's Signal. It's something that can clearly happen. When you rule out all other possibilities, we're relatively young. I know how technology works. You can't add somebody's number that didn't already exist there. What do you make of this? And then having the lawsuit filed right afterwards, going straight to the Trump deranged judge, it just seems all too perfect, almost cinematic, almost like it was scripted.
So there are a lot of questions here, but let's just acknowledge a couple of abnormalities in terms of the way Trump officials decided to discuss what obviously are sensitive conversations. They were, after all, debating and then deciding to bomb a foreign country in secret. They disclosed the time of the operation, the aircraft to be used. Obviously, that's not something that you want to be careless with or reckless with. Signal is a decent app of encryption for ordinary people who want to make it a little bit harder for the government or non-state actors to spy on them. I use it for kind of banal journalism, if I'm talking to sources, those kind of things. The U.S. government spends in excess of $1 trillion a year on its military and intelligence budget. They have created the most sophisticated mechanisms for communicating securely that exists. It's not just the Situation Room, but there are thousands, or at least hundreds, all around Washington of similar types of rooms. There are extremely encrypted networks, infinitely better than Signal, that national security officials use, especially for the most sensitive conversations. So I do think it's kind of careless to discuss war plans on Signal. There's much more secure ways to do that. I also do think that there is the question of whether Mike Waltz was, in fact, in some way communicating with Jeffrey Goldberg, one of the most unscrupulous, fraudulent operatives in Washington, going back to the Iraq War, when he's the one who invented the lie that convinced Americans to support the Iraq War, which is that Saddam Hussein had an alliance with al-Qaeda and was involved in the planning of the 9/11 attack. And then he became ground zero for Russiagate while he was the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. All the anonymous sources to try and disparage Trump right before election. This is the worst of the worst. Now, I don't know if you saw, but Laura Ingraham did quite an adversarial interview with Mike Waltz last night, trying to understand, like, why was he in your phone? As you say, I mean, I've created Signal groups before. The only way you can create Signal groups and then add people is if their number and contact is saved in your phone. According to Goldberg, and I think he has the evidence of this, he received an invitation from Mike Waltz to join this group, and that's how he accepted. Now, the NSA has all kinds of ways to breach Signal. A lot of other state actors have ways of breaching Signal. We know that they've breached Signal. In fact, Biden purchased or paid an Israeli firm to give them the technology last year that can breach both Telegram and Signal. I did a major case once in Brazil, and we got all of this information because my source was able to breach Telegram, which is very similar to Signal. These are by far not invulnerable platforms, quite the contrary. And so maybe somebody made it seem like Mike Waltz was inviting Jeffrey Goldberg into that group. But honestly, I find that unlikely. And what we know for certain is that Jeffrey Goldberg ended up in that group. And it's a group that he should never have ended up in. And we definitely should want to know why and how that happened.
Yeah, it does seem like someone's lying. And we hate to say that, we would hate to say that this is Mike Waltz. I mean, listen, he says he's never even met Jeffrey Goldberg. This seems like a very obvious thing that you could prove or disprove very quickly. And we played the adversarial interview with Laura Ingraham. And so we played a full, pretty meaty portion of it earlier in the show, Glenn, where she's like, you're just going to go with the I didn't have his contact saved correctly thing? And then he goes and says he's working with Elon to figure out if there was a technical glitch here. Again,
he said, she was like, how did he get in your phone? And he said, oh, this happens to get sucked in. I don't know about you, Benny. I've never had sucked into my telephone a contact and telephone number saved into my phone of some of the people who are most hostile to me. That has never happened to me. Maybe he's using a weird phone. But yeah, that really doesn't pass the smell test. And also, we do know, I have to say, I don't know if you've seen it, but there are exchanges, at least one exchange, where Mike Waltz attacks Jeffrey Goldberg on Twitter, calling him a hoaxer or a fraudster. So we know that Mike Waltz knows who Jeffrey Goldberg is. They've at least interacted on Twitter, and Jeffrey Goldberg is extremely plugged in to national security sources. He has somebody who has supported pretty much every war, every regime change operation. He was formerly an IDF soldier. This is not a Chomskyite left-wing pacifist figure. This is somebody really embedded in the bipartisan war-making class. Maybe there is an explanation. I'm open to that, but everything I've heard so far suggests that for whatever reason he had, Mike Waltz did, saved into his phone Jeffrey Goldberg's number. Maybe he didn't even know that, but that's something we need to find out for sure.
Okay. What's going to be the fallout here? I mean, you obviously were instrumental in publishing Edward Snowden and the Snowden papers. You understand the fallout of these things, and there are people who can burn. There are ways to really twist people up in lawsuits about everything from Russiagate, right? And as soon as I saw that lawsuit drop, Glenn, from Norm Eisen of all people, I was like, oh, come on. Is it David Brock and Norm Eisen? As soon as I saw that lawsuit drop, I said, that's the game, man. Game over. People were prepared for this, right? And it gets randomly assigned to Boasberg. I mean, it does seem like they're trying to ratchet this up. Is it going to work?
I mean, the one reason why I'm very skeptical about believing anyone's versions of events, even what seems most likely to me, is because one of the things we know for certain is that the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the entire permanent part of our government that operates in secrecy has been conspiring quite aggressively to first sabotage the Trump campaign in 2016. That's where all the Russiagate hoaxes came from and emanated from, intelligence agencies passing it to the New York Times, the Washington Post, which then showered themselves with Pulitzers for the false stories. But also, you know, they did it throughout the entire Trump presidency. And then heading into the 2020 campaign, when highly incriminating documents about Joe Biden's business pursuits in Ukraine and China were revealed, those are the scumbags who decided to label it Russian disinformation, a complete and total lie that every media outlet ate up. And so we know they have engaged in all sorts of ops and dark arts in order to sabotage a president they consider threatening to their agenda, even though he's now been twice elected. And that's why I'm very reluctant to say what seems like pretty clearly happened here is in fact what happened here. We have to be open to the possibility of more sinister explanations, given what we know these agencies have been doing.
Okay. So it's funny that you say this on the heels of the JFK documents release, because, man, they just straight up admit it, right? Bioweapons operation in Cuba and regime change all around the world. Every regime needs to be changed. Let's go do it. It's everything we ever thought about our intel agencies and more. And we've done long form podcasts with like Mike Benz talking about all of the revelations. Holy smokes, man. I was like one question was a 2-hour answer. Is unbelievable. Don't ever, by the way, Glenn, don't ever ask Mike Benz to explain the CIA drug trade if you don't have an extra 2 hours.
I had him on my show and I asked a couple of questions that led to quite lengthy answers, but they're always interesting. They just seem to be a little bit drawn out. No, he's so important as a voice because he worked inside and, you know, he's here to say a lot of things. But about the JFK documents, what I would obviously there's a lot of newly released material. There's a lot of material that has been released for a while, but there's such a, you know, gigantic mountain of it that nobody except reporters who dedicate their lives to it, and there have been some, can possibly read through it all and process it. But what I would really encourage people to read is the fully now unredacted memo from Arthur Schlesinger, who is sort of like the royal court historian of Camelot. JFK worshipped him. Every, you know, Democrat and liberal in that time worshipped Arthur Schlesinger. And this was after the Bay of Pigs debacle, when Kennedy was enraged with the CIA and ultimately fired Allen Dulles, who was the father of the CIA. And he wanted to know, JFK did, how can we rein in the CIA? They're making their own foreign policy. They don't have anything to do with the State Department or even the White House. They're off on their own, changing governments, waging wars with their paramilitary outlet. And Schlesinger wrote this memo about essentially all the ways in which the CIA has become this anti-democratic monster and all the different things you need to do to rein them in. And Kennedy, having fired Allen Dulles, having been enraged by the Bay of Pigs, was in the process of doing that. And that's the reason why people in the CIA hated him so much. It's a 12-page memo, but it also gives the history of the CIA in terms of how often we've remember we used to hear during 2016, oh, Russia has invaded and interfered in our sacred democracy with Facebook pages and a few Twitter bots. We've been going around the world just overturning whatever governments we want, assassinating every leader we want through the CIA. And this is in 1961. So this was before the Vietnam War, before the Central American Wars of the 1980s, before the War on Terror, all of which massively expanded the power of this part of the government. They really are what this memo calls, quote, a state within a state. And to understand not just the role of the CIA, but why they had such a strong motive to kill JFK, that we know for certain they hid information from the Warren Commission on purpose. Allen Dulles, who was the father of the CIA, somehow ended up on the Warren Commission. You know, it'd be like putting O.J. Simpson on a commission to find out who killed Nicole Brown Simpson. And
it'd be like putting Jeffrey Goldberg. It'd be like putting Jeffrey Goldberg in your Trump chat.
And then asking him to investigate how it happened. So yeah, I mean, it's such an important historical memo for people to understand the realities of this part of our government that functions almost entirely and always in complete secrecy.
Just a really quick one for you, Glenn, because President Trump was on quite a pardon romp and it seems like he's just with reckless abandon going to go through and try and right wrongs. Edward Snowden pardon. A lot of people were thinking about this and speculating it, talking about it online. I just want to get your take. Just easy questions, at the end of the interview here.
Yeah, super simple, and just a few seconds. I won't go on as long as Jeffrey, as long as Mike Benz will when you ask him about CIA drug trade. But during the transition in 2020, when Trump was on his way out and Biden was on his way in, there was a very active campaign to secure a pardon for Edward Snowden, because after all, Snowden revealed the exact abuses of the exact agencies that had targeted Trump abusively and illegally by spying on his campaign, et cetera, all the things we know the FBI and the NSA did. And so Trump was very amenable to the idea that Snowden's not a criminal. He's actually a hero. What he exposed was something the American people needed to know about how these agencies are directing their powers, not at foreign adversaries or terrorist organizations, but internally at our citizens in order to interfere in our politics. And he came extremely close to doing it. And the reason he didn't is because of that second impeachment hearing, which never made any sense. Why would you be impeaching a president who is a couple of weeks away from leaving? You can't even have the trial. And that's because the national security hawks in the Republican Party in the Senate were petrified that Trump was going to do two things on his way out: declassify a bunch of documents, including the JFK files, as well as pardon Snowden and maybe Julian Assange, who was much closer to pardoning Snowden. And they said, if you do this, we're going to vote to convict you and you will be ineligible to run forever again. It was kind of a sword, a Damocles sword that the senators were holding over Trump's head in order to ensure he didn't do the things he wanted to do. And shortly after he left, he did an interview with Candace Owens, and she pressed him on that. Like, why didn't you pardon Edward Snowden? He said, I came very close to doing so. There were a lot of people I trusted who said I should, and there were a couple people I trusted who said he's a bad guy, meaning people like Mark Pompeo and sort of the neocons that Trump allowed into that first administration. Whether Trump revisits this topic, I don't think he's going to do it right away. It would cause a lot of controversy, obviously be very, very polarizing. But I'll put it this way. When I think about Edward Snowden getting pardoned, it's obviously something I want very much. I do regard him as a courageous hero, a patriot. I know there's zero chance that the Democratic Party will ever give him that. And the only person who will or could is Donald Trump. So I'm hoping that at some point in the next 4 years, that topic gets revisited.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Glenn, I'm honored to have you on the show. I'm very excited for them to charge Jeffrey Goldberg with the same thing they charged Donald Trump with, which was the unlawful retention and willful retention of national defense information. It's going to be really exciting to see that somehow play out. And you got to follow Glenn. Obviously, if you don't follow Glenn, you're crazy. You're a crazy person. Get
crazy.
on over there.
I mean, mentally ill, basically.
We got 2.2 million. Here's his Rumble page too, and he's just a legend. And Glenn, we really hope to have you back with regularity to shed some more light on this. Because
you're doing great work, Benny. I'd be happy to come back anytime.
It's a dark time, and we need people who shine lights. So thank you.
All right,
Glenn.
thanks so much. All right, bye-bye.
What a rowdy show, man. What a fun show. And we're just getting started. Right? Yeah. We're just getting started. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ripping through a lot of content today because there's just a lot to talk about. I don't want to do one thing, though. And this is on the rule that we have around here. I don't want to give oxygen to hoaxes. It's probably the last time I'm going to talk about this little signal chat thing. It is all the rage that everybody's talking about this morning, and it does have the potential, you can see with these lawsuits, to like strangle or to choke out a president's administration. This is exactly what they did with Russiagate. With Russiagate, the whole point of it was never to actually get a conviction against Trump. There was nothing there. To speak to anybody, including Stephen Miller, who's been on this show and said the exact same thing, Stephen Miller said it was impossible to work with the Russiagate dark black cloud that hung over everything that you did. Every time you ordered Russian salad dressing or a Russian vodka at a bar after work for a dry martini, you could potentially get indicted. So the point of these ops is to strangle and to zip tie an administration that's running at full pace. It's why we're really happy, and it's one of the final things I'll say on this. It's why we're really happy that J.D. Vance popped off on it. The White House is obviously going full bore on this, saying it's just purely a hoax and we're not going to talk about it anymore. So don't expect me to talk about it anymore. But J.D. Vance is saying it's very clear that Goldberg oversold what he had. The one thing in particular that really stands out, remember when he was attacking Ratcliffe, the CIA director, for blowing the cover of a CIA agent. Turns out Ratcliffe was simply naming his chief of staff. So it was all a hoax. Ladies and gentlemen, you can read this post from J.D. Vance on his X account. I hope that you read that on your Patriot Mobile device. Patriot Mobile is the cell phone company that keeps us locked in and keeps us loaded with a coverage guarantee. We need that as we travel the country and bring you the news. Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding coverage nationwide, but also you'll be able to support the values that you believe in. The First and Second Amendment is pretty valuable when you're on your cell phone. But also, they are the only Christian conservative wireless provider, period, in this country. So go right now to patriotmobile.com/Benny, call 972-PATRIOT, get a free month of service with the promo code Benny. Switch to Patriot Mobile today to defend freedom with every single call or text that you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Okay, you're going to want to be on a strong connection here because we have a very strong connection coming on the program. A lot of firsts today and a lot of legends. Ladies and gentlemen, Megyn Kelly, we are so honored to have on the program. Megyn Kelly is someone who has a radio show that is, we're live right now, that's currently ongoing. And she joined us this morning to talk to this audience and to like lock in. And we had a rowdy conversation that extended, quite frankly, through a lot of cultural lines. Instead of this like signal deep state op, I said, let's change the narrative here, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Megyn Kelly, joining the show for the first time. Freaking honor. Let's go. Megyn, welcome to the Benny Show. It is such an honor, and I've been a fan of yours for a long time. And it's just so great to finally do this.
I'm so excited to be here and to meet you.
So there is somebody on Capitol Hill who is not excited to be asked a question by a reporter. Now, you have asked many edgy questions in your career, but Jasmine Crockett just grabbed a reporter's cell phone and smashed it, and apparently there's assault charges filed. The clip is right here. I don't, like, my take on this is, like, you're the member of Congress. People are going to ask you questions all day. You should never lay your hands on a reporter, grab their gear, and smash it. But hey, what do I know? What are your take on this, Megyn?
Well, I'm just watching this for the first time with you now. Is she going to grab it here? Should she grab him or just his phone?
So she grabs the cell phone right as they go around the corner in the hallway, and then the reporter says that he got scratched during this exchange. Mm-hmm. So I'm, looking at it, and I'm saying, like,
no, if she laid any hands on that reporter, it's assault, and she should be charged. And she absolutely should be sued for the value of the camera/phone. This is completely inappropriate. She's completely inappropriate. And you see it with her time and time again. I mean, I guess she didn't feel that mocking a man in a wheelchair, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who's, a truly good man, was enough for one day. She wanted to commit a couple of crimes on her way home back to Congress that day. This woman, I've had about enough of her. She wants to be like a member of the squad. She thinks of herself like an AOC. She talks like, she's from the hood. Meanwhile, she grew up in a nice family. She didn't talk like this 3 years ago. 3 years ago, she sounded like you and I sound in this conversation. Like, I'm really excited to be going to Congress. I can't wait to get started on my new job. And now she's like, we need to smack him in the head, bitch. Like, what do you, we have videotape. Why are you talking like that? No one believes this bullshit. And now she's graduated to acting like a thug. So congratulations. Your term in the U.S. Congress is going really well, swimmingly.
I don't understand. There's so many members of Congress that get asked tough questions every single day in the hallways. Try being a Republican member of Congress. You are like constantly assaulted every single hallway, an elevator ride in Congress, you were getting hit up by a reporter asking you did you beat your wife? Did you kill your wife? Like, this is just the constant life of any Republican.
Yeah.
In the halls of Congress.
That literally just happened to Pete Hegseth at his confirmation hearings. I mean,
Yes.
that actually was a line of questioning, like, how long have you been beating your wife? And he had to sit there and take it like a frustrated professional, and he did. Brett Kavanaugh, they were accusing him of being a gang rapist. They were clamoring around him as he walked in and out of the hearings like he was Charles Manson. I mean, this is a Supreme Court justice. He took it like a professional, like a gentleman. She is not a lady. She is low class, low rent, and dying for us to see it. And I guess she thinks it's cool. Like, she thinks we're going to think she's cool if she acts like that. She's forgotten she's in the halls of Congress. And I realize they have a lower approval rating than cockroaches, quite literally, than like STDs have higher ratings than Congress
cancer,
does.
yes.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad. I mean, you'd rather have herpes than spend time with Jasmine Crockett. It's bad. Okay, I realize that. But still, just for the sake of the people, we should be upholding some kind of a standard in what we are willing to send there. And members of Houston, my friends down in Houston, Texas, that's not it.
So it's interesting that you brought up her code switching with her accent. This video is unbelievable. I want to play it just the first couple of seconds here. But you could tell that she's just totally putting it on. The whole ghetto act is a complete facade. She's doing it, I guess, because she thinks that that's what people want, or she comes from a ratchet district. I'm not sure. I've never been there. But have a listen.
Absolutely. First of all, it's good to see you in the new year. You know, no one could have told me that when I went down to Austin, now it looks like a little bit over a year ago,
sweet,
that I would be running for Congress.
So
This
calm.
is not what my plan was.
Now you can see why she won.
But what I've always decided is that I would step up when there was a need. Listen, he up there, he's hearing all kinds of nonsense and bullshit. Let me just be real. And we weren't gonna sit for that shit. We wouldn't, you know.
What is
when
it?
she called me and
Except for
said,
that
I think it's
What does it say when you code switch? Like, it's like pathological to do this. This is what Alec Baldwin's wife does, right, with her fake accent.
First of all, I mean, like, I feel like what is this, like her black accent? Because I feel like this is offensive to black people. Like, she thinks all black people, which is like, I guess, her favored constituency, she's trying to win over, want to hear her talk like that. Well, she lost her R's. She don't say her R's anymore, and she don't use proper grammar. Like, who the hell are you trying to appeal to? This is deeply offensive. This doesn't sound like any black person I know. I don't hang out in the hood a lot, so I guess that's what she's going for. But are those real voters? Is that what she thinks is going to carry her over the edge? I don't get it. In this nice video with like the velvet red jacket, she remembered how to say R's, which is terrific. Now, I don't even know. Is that English? I don't know what that is other than low class, low rent. And by the way, and I have good standing to say this, there's a way of going too far on the fake eyelashes. Having worked at Fox for 13 years, I have expertise in this department. There, just lash extenders, those can be nice. And then you cross over to Tammy Faye territory, and it's happened. Someone needs to rein it back in.
Just really quickly, she's making a lot of news these days. It says that the governor of Texas, who's been disabled in a wheelchair for the better part of the last 2 decades, is Governor Hot Wheels. I am waiting for any Democrat to be asked about this on the record. You know that if Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or anybody ever said something like that or laid a hand on a reporter, if Marjorie Taylor Greene laid a hand on a reporter and smashed their camera, what do you think would happen? She'd be out of Congress that evening. They'd vote her out.
That guy, I think he works for Laura Loomer, who was on top of her. That's why, because the media is like, oh, Laura Loomer. Meanwhile, she's broken a lot of big stories. So if that had been CBS News, if that had been, one of these annoying reporters like Margaret Brennan behind there, can you imagine if they'd done any damage to her camera as she tried to get a real answer? Wouldn't take no for an answer out of a member of Congress. Please. It's ridiculous. I don't know what this woman's problem is. I think she might not be all that well. She's also calling for a tax on Ted Cruz. She wants a tax on Elon Musk. Everything she says is provocative. And I think she's really sort of leaning into there's no such thing as bad publicity. She's building a name and a social media following, which means she is just like AOC in that she's a congressional Kardashian. She's there to build her Insta and not to really legislate or do good for the people. It's obvious, and it's really annoying. Was that the injury to the reporter that you were showing there?
Yeah. So he got scratched by the big plastic fake nails. The acrylic nails.
Also part of the act.
Okay. So, it does seem like there's a lot of this going on, and I want to switch arenas here to Hollywood, although it's kind of indistinguishable at this point, politics and Hollywood. But the Rachel Zegler activity with this Snow White movie has been so insufferable and so narcissistic and so detached from reality. She's now bragging about the success of Snow White, which is a movie that's going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. And mainly because of her and because nobody wanted to support her. She did on camera say that members of Trump's movement and anyone who disagrees with her doesn't have to go show up and give her any more money. And I guess people followed suit. There are empty theaters all around the country. We are now at a 1 out of 10 on IMDb for the new Snow White. And it couldn't happen to a better person. What is the lesson to be learned here with this Snow White disaster?
Yeah, we had more dwarfs than we did viewers in most of these theaters. And as you know, there were no dwarfs other than some CGI weird generated version of them. It's the old, it truly is go woke, go broke, but also don't alienate half of the country when you're putting out a product meant to appeal to all. It's the Michael Jordan Republicans buy sneakers too. And she didn't just come out. It would have been bad enough if she had just come out and said, please, please, please vote for Kamala Harris. Trump is dangerous. That's not smart when you're headlining a film like this that's meant to have mass appeal. Republicans have children too. That's not smart. But she went so much further than that, right? She said she hopes that neither Trump nor any of his supporters ever know peace. She told Trump and all of his supporters to F off. She was out there lecturing us on how we needed to vote for Kamala Harris or we could unfollow her. There's tape of her saying, for every one of the 18 hours I am in the Snow White dress, I expect to get paid. If it's 18 hours, I want 18 hours of pay. I'm sure she got underpaid as a Disney lead actress or as a Steven Spielberg lead actress in West Side Story. Boo effing who? People have real problems and no one gives a shit if she got paid for 17 instead of 18 on her multi-million-dollar salary, which is not calculated by the hour. So she just encapsulates everything that most of us cannot stand about modern day feminism and the left in general. And Hollywood, they hate the right. They hate Trump. It's not enough to dislike the candidate. You have to hate him and hate his supporters. This weird feminist thing where her heroine cannot be in love or be saved by a man, the prince, that she's more focused on becoming the leader she was meant to be, as if women in modern day America must make that choice. You cannot both be a leader as a female and fall in love and be rescued by a prince. Like, that's incongruous bullshit. That's only the left's version of what it means to be a strong woman or female empowerment. So, I mean, this woman has clicked every box. And just for cherry on top at the end, she gave an interview last week talking about how they were basically a bunch of white supremacists on the set of West Side Story, where Steven Spielberg and co. were demanding that she prove how Latina she really is, since her name doesn't sound Latina. And she was angrily saying, did I have to bring in my little abuelita for you to believe that I was Latina? That's her thanks to Steven Spielberg, who discovered her and made her. So she's an ingrate, she's annoying, and I think she's probably 2 and done.
Do you think your career's over after this?
I do.
And poison.
I do.
It's been so poisonous. And if she hadn't have opened her mouth, I think that this movie might have done well. They might have just been able to ride on the hopium of the movie and some well-cut trailers, and people would have paid to go see it. And then it would have fallen off when people knew it was garbage. But Rachel Zegler made it so hateable that you really sabotaged and took hundreds of millions of dollars from the studio. I don't know how anyone would ever want to go into business with her ever again.
I mean, do you know like how hard it is to find an attractive young woman in Hollywood who can act and sing? It's not hard. Like, who just isn't going to offend half the country. There'll be 25,000 more just like her knocking on the same doors that she had open to her. She had the opportunity of a lifetime. And instead of being humble and grateful, she was entitled and a snot. And I will look forward to her not getting cast in any more movies for a long time until she actually does learn something about humanity and humility.
I don't think that anybody, especially parents of young girls, my girls dress up as Disney princesses for free all day long.
Right.
And they don't bitch and complain and snivel ungratefully. They're very happy to do it. And so that clip really told everybody what they needed to know about who Rachel Zegler was. Why would you ever give her your IP?
It's like I remember being sort of young and at Fox News, and there it was kind of similar in that there were a lot of people who would have loved to have the job that I had, even as a starting reporter working for Roger Ailes, and I knew it. You know, and every opportunity he gave me, it was like when I started there, it was you'll be working the 5 a.m. weekend shift. And what did I say? Thank you so much. I hope I do well. You know, like I can't get over the sense of entitlement and to show up, to criticize the bosses, to suggest that they're white supremacists, to demand more money like you're not getting paid adequately, to rip on the plot that you've been asked to embody as the actress. Like she's just one big ball of entitlement, which is what we all hate about the front edge of Gen Z. The back edge of Gen Z is going to save us all. Those people are great. I'm raising 3 of them right now, and they're just not like this isn't even the same species as we just saw on this television, but it's because of her that my kids and this next generation are winding up so normal and more conservative and rejecting everything that has to do with identity politics.
Yes, we're very thankful for your time at Fox News because you asked President Trump his first question ever from a debate stage, and he brought up Rosie O'Donnell, who's now fled the country, and now we've come full circle. You're speaking at President Trump's inauguration, and Rosie O'Donnell's fled. So we have the singularity has completed, and time is a flat circle.
With the
you
world.
were right.
Poor
After
Ireland,
all
by the
these
way.
years.
What did they do to deserve her? That's just, I mean, I know they're having troubles, but really, is it that bad? I just feel like the Irish have suffered enough over the course of history. They don't need Rosie O'Donnell. Can I tell you something about Rosie O'Donnell? She's so annoying. So I asked that question of President Trump, and he had that great answer. Everybody laughed. And when I wrote my book a year or so later, I never would have asked Trump that question if it had only been Rosie O'Donnell who'd said those things about, because she is so hateful and gross, and she gave just as good as she got, you know. So I realized even then that she was not an appropriate solo character to base a question on. So whatever, it's just a perfunctory, you know, behind the scenes explanation of part of the question. She wrote me the nastiest note. She was so offended that Trump's comments about her weren't enough to justify. I'm like, bitch, be quiet and just be glad that anything he said about you made it into the question at all. Like, you know, who do you think you are to be second guessing my debate question? Like, give me a break. And now she's out there. She fled to Ireland after weeks of talking in these updated social media videos about her cold sore and giving people a close-up look at her disgusting cold sore, which happens to be attached to her disgusting face. A good riddance. I wish it weren't my people, the Irish, who wound up with her, but better them than us.
Here's the actual video. We have it in the queue. You talked about how Congress is less popular than herpes. So what does that make the herpes on Rosie O'Donnell's ugly face? And she is openly talking about how she's giving people herpes. She's showing people, how does Ireland allow her to immigrate? She's clearly contagious here.
Right. Doesn't this need to be disclosed on your immigration forms, right? Like in the same way that Mahmoud Khalil forgot to mention that he worked for UNRWA, and now the Trump administration is saying, you're out based on that alone, buddy. Can't she be ejected from Ireland for bringing in communicable diseases? God only knows. That's probably just the tip of the iceberg with this one. Not suggesting she has more communicable diseases, just a joke.
I didn't know she wrote you. So she's that thin-skinned. Again, it's like Jasmine Crockett lashing out at the reporter. Try being a Republican for a day of your life.
Yes.
You would melt. You lash at one reporter asks you a question, and you like lash out. Try being a Republican. They're so thin-skinned, these people. It really is remarkable. How do they survive?
we were listening to the New York Times' The Daily podcast this morning, and it's well worth your time if you want to go back and devote some time to this, because you won't believe how concerned they are over the New York Times that Trump has got this whole avenue of journalists and performers, entertainers, and podcasters who will talk to him. So he can do a total end around us, the truth tellers, the journalists who hold him to account. Okay, first of all, like, none of that is true. Trump talks to the mainstream media more than any president in modern American history. They have not been sidelined. He's not doing presidential news conferences in front of Theo Vaughn at all. He's doing it with NBC and the New York Times and all of them, right? So they don't actually have the problem they say they do, but just the horror for these guys that, like, he now has an entire ecosystem that likes him, that will go like promote his message. This is the New York Times, totally freaking clueless that that's exactly what they and their brethren have been doing for every Democrat from the dawn of time, right? Like, what would it be like if there were an entire media ecosystem designed just to run cover for one party, right? That's not what digital media is for Trump, but that is what they are for Democrats. And they're losing their minds that they don't have this complete monopoly on information anymore.
The internet is the great humbler. And anybody who thinks that they have a audience, Rachel Zegler, for instance, there's that winged victory, that embarrassing winged victory clip where she's like, people will line up to see me.
Yeah,
no, they won't.
That's right.
You know, like right? Like, no, they won't, bitch. Like, nobody lined up to see you. You have no real fans. You have no real audience, right? The internet is something that proves who's real and who's astroturfed. And there's no better example of this than Michelle Obama's launch of her podcast. Now, YouTube is a tough space. YouTube is a tough block, man. It's kill or be killed on YouTube.
Yes.
There's no faking it. And you either grind and you have talent and the audience pays you, the audience pays you back for it by subscribing and like watching and listening. You create something of a value, or you burn. And Michelle Obama's podcast is getting destroyed right now. YouTube is the main platform that it's published on, and it's seeing massive ratios, virtually zero, no views except for like people clicking on the video to go check the comment section and go read the comments.
Yeah.
And man, it just seems like such an embarrassment for the establishment right now, because we were told that Michelle Obama was a messianic figure, and that so many and she would probably believe this, that billions of people love her so much that they'd sit there and listen to her and her, eunuch-looking brother, who somehow looks more feminine than she does.
Brother Craig.
Talk about their childhood. She actually thought she bought, I guess she drank the Kool-Aid, Megyn.
Yes.
She thought that everyone was going to subscribe.
The same thing that happened to Oprah is happening to Michelle Obama, which is like, you've lost your power. And you're starting to realize it. You once had a huge fan base and you were the queen, and you're not. And the numbers are showing it. And your fan base has left and they've moved on to a newer model. That's the way politics in particular works, but it can work that way in television too. Oprah had the biggest audience in the world. And then she went political, completely abandoned the women and decided to make the race about race instead of her woman card, right? It was Hillary versus Barack for the Democratic nomination back in 2008. She chose to go with the race and rejected her audience, women of America of all races, who had made her a billionaire. She thumbed the middle finger at them. And that was the beginning of the end for her. No one gives a shit who Oprah thinks should be in office. No one. So she got out there. She tried to campaign for Kamala, and it didn't move the needle at all. She tried to do her same little Oprah shtick in her interview with Kamala, like, Kamala Harris. And people were like, why is she yelling at me? Like, that was one thing on your television in 1990. We communicate differently now. Everything's changed, and she hasn't been paying attention. Okay, so enter Michelle Obama. Same. She was a rock star when she was first lady, right? The left was so in love with itself for electing a black president that everything Michelle Obama touched turned to gold. Like, she had the best style of any first lady ever. No, she didn't. She was like the most glamorous. No, she wasn't. She's the most beautiful. Let's face it, she wasn't. Same way Jill Biden supposedly had the next best style. Not true. Melania, they want you to think she's unattractive and can't wear a dress. Sure. Okay, so that's what they did. Michelle Obama believed it. She believed it to the point where she named her own memoir Becoming, Benny. Who names their memoir Becoming? Becoming Michelle Obama. You see, it works in so many ways. So she decides to go out there, and somebody convinced her if she had debates about whether a hot dog is a sandwich, she could sell it because she's Michelle Obama. No, they've moved on. And the right has always disliked her because they know she hates America. So now she gets out there and you mark my words, it's just going to be a matter of days before she blames this on the racism of Americans who won't embrace her. And I guarantee you she's going to be mentioning her African hair because she said when she was first lady, she wanted to wear her hair in like native African ways or ethnic like ways, but she couldn't because America was too racist and we weren't ready for it. So now she goes out with like 40 bumps. She looks like she's got tumors coming out of her skull and she looks absurd. And for noticing that, we're all going to be called racists. And that's going to be why we don't watch the show because we're racist. Look at this. She looks like an SNL skit parody of herself.
Is this called the Stegosaurus? Do you go give me the Stegosaurus? You just go walking in and you go, I want to look prehistoric. I want to look prehistoric is what I want. Not historic. I want to look prehistoric. I want you to find me at a museum. Catch me outside at the museum.
I don't know what's happening.
Dino Park.
So there's no mystery as to why no one wants to listen to Michelle and Brother Craig talk about what time she likes to go to sleep and how long she has guests visit and whether the hot dog qualifies as a sandwich. We've moved on.
I don't spend a lot of time at women's hair salons. I know that you have. Can you explain? Like, what would you name this? What would you even ask for?
I don't know. I don't know what that is. It is dinosaur-esque. I haven't seen anything that beats that. I mean, when I first saw just like the front one, it looked like a satellite dish to me. Like I was thinking if I were Brother Craig, like the way this show could rate is if he leaned over to her and did this. Just to see if anything happens. Like, will it move? Does it spin? What's the thinking behind it?
I don't know. Starlink? It could be a Starlink. This is how they're uploading.
You mark my words. Okay. We're all gonna be racist because we don't like it.
That's right. Is it better than the pirate costume? Is it better than the pirate costume on Valentine's Day? Is it better?
Now this was just mean. I don't like.
Yo-ho.
This was just
a pirate's life for me.
I feel, like you have those moments with your spouse where like you don't, as a lady, you don't have your makeup on. For me, I'd have like the ponytail on top of the head at the end of the night. You know what I mean? Like that situation. And maybe sometimes you take a picture, like just the two of you, who cares? Or your kids take it. You don't post it on the internet. No, you don't. And yet they did. They posted it. Was it their anniversary photo, I think. And she's never looked worse. Either he didn't ask her if he could post that or he hates her. I'm not sure which, because he looks like $1 million. Look at the $1 million smile there.
Yep.
And she looks absolutely absurd. And so something is happening here. Maybe it portends of the divorce that we're reading about in the papers, or he just can't stand her, or she's lost her mirror. I don't know, but this is not right on any level.
A Snow White reference. I appreciate that. You've really, again, you've brought it all home. As a happily married man of nearly a decade now, I can tell you, post a photo of your wife like this, it's over.
Yeah,
I mean, it's over. You're sleeping not in the doghouse. You're like sleeping off property. You're not allowed.
I haven't seen like a photo fail this bad since, remember when one of the Kardashians posted an unedited bathing suit shot? It was the Kardashian who everybody thinks might be OJ's child, the really tall one. I can't remember her name. You know the one. And she was there on the internet, unedited in a bikini for a long period of time before they took it down. And we're like, oh my God, she put out her real body. What are we doing? That's not what we do. There hasn't been a photo fail this bad since then.
So I just want to end with this because there was a big event in New York, and you know about these style of events. There was a Broadway opening, and we got to see Joe Biden come out for the first time from hiding. And nobody's seen him. And we got to see Joe Biden again. And they're trying to do a soft introduction back into the political arena. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this and whether you think that it will work. The reason why is that, one, you are an expert on Jill Biden's style. And if we're going to be talking about style, here's proof of this. You know what it's like to wear literal trash bags around at all times. Now, you're not first lady. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I'm not sure. I don't know. But you do know what it's like to dress just like Joe Biden. Her and Joe were soft launching a jump back into politics. They were out in the streets. They were trying to ham it up. Joe Biden, apparently behind the scenes, is begging the DNC to take him back, to put him back out there. And I wanted to get your opinion on all of this.
It's not going to happen. Joe Biden he's been seen in public the same way that your great grandpa was seen as the toe tag passed by the door as they took him to the final resting place. I mean, these stories are popping up now too of him allegedly on the Amtrak, where he's back, Amtrak Joe. No, the reports actually on board the train were that he didn't speak to anybody. He was all but drooling. If people said hello to him, he was oblivious to it. I mean, Jill Biden is the nastiest first lady we've ever seen. She's nastier than Hillary Clinton. At least Hillary Clinton did what was right for her man. She did. When push came to shove, even though he did her dirty. She stood by him and she helped get him through his presidency. You can say what you will about Hillary as a woman, a person, and a politician, but in the wife department, Bill's got to give her some credit. She stood by him and helped him navigate through those 8 years. Not so for Jill Biden. He needs to be in a facility. Honestly, he does. Who that loved Joe Biden would allow him to be showcased in this way where you just know he's going to be the subject of mockery? And you don't need to. When you're Joe Biden, they will send you a DVD or a link to the Broadway performance. You actually don't have to show up to see it in person. That's her wanting to be out there. There's a 10-year age difference. She's still young and vibrant-ish. And she wants the lifestyle she wants. And she knows that she'll get attention way more if she's with him than if she's by herself. And so she's parading him around out there I don't know, some sort of a circus act. And this is not on him. This is on her. She needs to take him behind closed doors and treat him humanely in the time he has left.
Remember, Megyn, he answered every question. That's what Jill said on stage.
Oh, God.
When Joe Biden had that debate performance with Trump.
That's what you get. Awful.
He answered every question.
Well, Benny, did you see, speaking of Broadway and Joe Biden, this week, George Clooney's out there and he's playing a journalist and acting like he is a journalist and has a bunch of lectures for those in the journalism biz about, speaking truth to power and how it's really important not to fall down on the job. It's one of those democracy dies in darkness lectures while he pats himself on the back for telling us that Joe Biden was infirm, as if he turned around the night of that fundraiser, which was June 15th, and told us all, when we know he said nothing. That presidential debate in which Biden imploded happened on June 27th. And it wasn't until mid-July, when Biden was refusing to get out after all of the Democrat Party was saying he had to or they'd lose, that finally George Clooney wrote that op-ed. But asked about it in this 60 interview showing here, his response was simply, well, I was taught to tell the truth. And a lot of people in my party not telling the truth. So that's holier than thou George Clooney on another stage in Broadway where, literally no one who's not a hard left partisan will go see that.
I can't wait for the George Clooney, Rachel Zegler blockbuster.
Oh, I just threw up in my mouth. By the way, if you want to go use the bathrooms when you go to Broadway to watch George Clooney, you can use whatever bathroom aligns with your gender identity. It's on every bathroom wall there is.
Great. Not planning on it.
Perfect.
And I do find it that it's a funny retirement center. This is where Hillary spent her last to 8 years weeping, is in Broadway. I love how it's like the de facto retirement center for washed up Democrats. Megyn, this has been such an honor. It's been really fun. It's been like sitting back and listening to a comedy routine, and it's been very interesting. And I hope that next time you come with the Michelle Obama Stegosaurus haircut style.
Benny, I have to say, I really admire what you do. I first really noticed you when you had that interview with Ron DeSantis, and you were the first to ask him about the woman issue, about what is a woman, and how do we know? And you made news of that. I was like, who is this guy? This is fearless. It was like a great interview for you to get. It was a great get. And to go there was ballsy. You made news. I was like, I'm a fan, and I've been a fan ever since.
Well, we're a fan of you, and everybody go follow Megyn. Obviously, 3.6 million people, can't be wrong. Also, her YouTube page is absolute fire and a must-watch. Megyn Kelly, the great Megyn Kelly, who gave us one of the greatest Trump moments ever, really launching this entire era. And now we come full circle. God bless you, Megyn, and Godspeed.
Thank you. All the best to you.
Megyn Kelly called me ballsy. Okay, I have that. I can retire. Are we going to retire? We're just going to retire. Let's flip a coin. I'm going to retire. No, not retire. Okay, all right. Listen, one of these days, Megyn Kelly calls you ballsy. You can just hang it up. You're done. You're done. What a fun show. We got to be more fun for you. Wouldn't you want to go 0 to 60 in like 1.3 seconds? Get yourself a Tesla. Sign up. I'm going to give you a Tesla. Why not? It's free. Not asking for anything. Don't need you to pay for anything. Just subscribe. Just subscribe. You probably already subscribed. So then pop on over here, BennyJohnson.com, Tesla giveaway. Sign up. The only rule is you just got to be a subscriber. That's it. So you're a subscriber. You sign up. We have to have a way to contact you. The platforms don't give us a way to contact you, right? And so you got to give us your name and email. And we're going to have AI just pick someone from the list. And we're going to give you a Tesla. Brand new. This is not a promotion. Elon Musk ain't paying us. Elon Musk ain't giving us cars. Tesla isn't giving us anything. We're going to go buy it because we want to help Tesla. And then we're going to hand deliver it to you. And it's going to be fun. We're going to make content. So I would drive around, right? We got a fast one with a cool door. Shh, open up like that. Yeah. So that's us giving back. That's us fighting. What a show. What a fighting show, Klein. What a fighting show, right? Glenn Greenwald, Jim Jordan, and Megyn Kelly. You won't find a more stacked program on the whole wide expanse of the internet, and we're thankful for you. We deeply appreciate you. It's an honor to do the show every single day. It's an honor to leave you with the verse of the day, ladies and gentlemen, from Matthew 6:34. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow brings its own worries. Today has trouble enough for today. Yeah. Worry is the great productivity killer. And we've been productive all morning, and we will remain productive as we go over to Piers Morgan's show right now and own some libs. It's going to be fun. that's what we're going to do next. And we got to sign off because that starts in like 60 seconds. So we just want to say thank you. Hearts out to the chat. We love you. And we're going to win. We already won, but we're going to keep on winning. You're going to get sick of winning. Where did I heard that before? Ladies and gentlemen, don't fall for the hoaxes. Lock in and tune in. And we're going to win. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
Hey, guess what day? Guess what? Woo-hoo! I'll tell you the tale of a chat room psyop. A message to you from our top cops. Europe, a freeloader signal is decoded. A journalist invited to witness some bullshit. Rockets done, gone and hit Houthis and the blowfish. But guess what? Guess what? Everything will be okay. Guess what day? What day? It is. It's hump day. Get it on. Hump day. Why? Woo-hoo! Guess what? Guess what? Woo-hoo! biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings. And their dying legacy, media dillweeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.